Sometimes in sports, it's better to be lucky than good. And if you're up 2-0 in the second round after beating your opponent on their home ice 2 straight games, is there really a difference? On today's edition of Locked On Oilers.
You are Locked On Oilers, your daily podcast on the Edmonton Oilers, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to this Game 2 Victory Friday edition of Locked On Oilers. I am your host, Nick Zararis. My second playoff run as host of Locked On Oilers. This is my third season with the Locked On Podcast Network, and I am so glad you are here to be a part of the ride. Locked On Oilers, a part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. And today's show is brought to you by our friends over at FanDuel, where right now, new FanDuel customers can get $200 in bonus bets if your first $5 bet wins. So on today's show, we are going to walk through that absolutely bananas Game 2 of this second round series between the Oilers and Golden Knights. I honestly might just ramble for the first 10 minutes about the overall game because there's so much to unpack. It kind of felt like two separate games mushed together because the energy was so different. That overtime was insane. So I'm going to give you stream of consciousness as to what the inside of my brain sounds like right now to start our show. Our second segment, I want to talk a little bit about some of the lineup decisions the Oilers made. We can address the Leon Draisaitl situation where he definitely doesn't look 100%, but he did score the overtime game winner, second career overtime game winner for Draisaitl. And then in our third segment, we talk a little bit more big picture, the series at large and where we go from here. So to start things out, you knew Vegas was going to push tonight. You knew Vegas was going to have more in the tank for the Oilers. And unequivocally, Vegas played a better game tonight than they did in Game 1. The Oilers thoroughly controlled Game 1. It was just simply a matter of, was their offense going to eventually break through and find a way? Tonight, very different story. McDavid and Draisaitl had a really difficult night in this game before they ultimately culminated in winning this game. But you think about where the Oilers were at going into the third period. You know, they had a lead. They were playing reasonably well. And then Vegas got going a little bit downhill, and it put them in a really disadvantageous position. And I should be fair when I say they didn't have a great night as far as their impact, but they played 11-22 overall in this game, including overtime. And at one point in this game, McDavid and Draisaitl were really having a hard time. At one point in this game, they had something in the ballpark of like a 20% goal share midway through the second, expected goal share, midway through the second period. And that tells you Vegas had the puck on them a lot. And you notice that. It really jumped out to me how much better Vegas played the Oilers in transition tonight. And what that meant, and I think it's not a coincidence, that because Vegas was a lot better in transition as far as the neutral zone, and even when Edmonton was trying to break out of their own end, their forecheckers were on the Oiler D a lot faster tonight. Anytime an Oiler player was trying to skate through the neutral zone with any type of speed, they were getting a stick whacked at their stick and breaking up that transition. Even when they gained the offensive zone with speed, you think about all the times that either Mark Stone or William Karlsson dispossessed McDavid, or at least took a defensive position that forced McDavid to adjust what he was doing and lose control of the puck. So if Connor's out there and he can't get going, you know, he can get the zone entry, but they can't do anything because there's no space, because there's no room. That's going to change the tenor of the game. We often talk about the Oilers as being a trickle-down offense, where if Connor gets going off the rush, he's generating zone entries, he's establishing offensive zone possession, and the Oilers are able to create off of that. It allows the rest of the lineup to take a little bit more of a cycle-based approach. And we know, by and large, when the Oilers bottom 9 in the non-McDavid Draisaitl minutes of the playoffs, when they've been effective, and I have massive, massive kudos to give to the Evander Kane, Ryan Nugent-Hopkins, and Zach Hyman line. That line plays exactly what you need if you're going to complement playing Connor and Leon together. Because when Nuge is out there with Evander Kane and with Zach Hyman, Those guys are getting the puck in deep below the goal line. They are following up on the forecheck, putting pressure on the Vegas defenders. And when they do that, they are buying offensive zone time. And even if you're not generating a lot of offense off of it, even if you're only just getting that zone time, that is buying yourself time where you are not actively defending. Speaking of actively defending, I got a lot of kudos to give to Brett Kulak tonight. Really important plays on the one late penalty kill they had on the Adam Henrique delay of game. He had a really nice breakup. I know the Oilers penalty kill has not been great in these playoffs, but there have been moments where it's made nice plays like that. I have a lot of credit to give to Calvin Pickard tonight, who easily had his best performance of the playoffs so far. And he was keeping the Oilers in this game. At one point during the third period, I was begging the Oilers to pick him up because for a lot of the playoffs, it is their responsibility to pick him up, to carry him, to do the job for him. And tonight, it was Calvin Pickard and it was the bottom nine forwards that were doing the heavy lifting in this game. You think about Pickard having to make 28 saves, and that doesn't sound like a lot, but you have to remember the curve we're grading on here. We're talking about somebody who played 19 NHL games in 6 years, somebody who was playing in the AHL for an extended period of time, and before last year hadn't played more than 20 NHL games in a season since like 2018. The fact that Calvin Pickard was good enough tonight to outlast Adin Hill, who had a very good game in his own right. He was great in the overtime period. He was outstanding on that 5-minute major. And I guess we should wrap up the first segment talking about the overtime specifically, because I can just ramble for the full 30 minutes about the game at large with no coherent stream of thought, because this is what the inside of my brain sounds like at 1:35 in the morning. But that overtime period was insane. The open nets, the posts, the penalties, the non-calls, and it is going to be the biggest topic of conversation in the hockey space tomorrow. I know we got 2 games tomorrow night. I'm sure the Leafs and Panthers will eventually steal some of that oxygen as we get towards the late afternoon and people's attention turns towards the games that night, tonight, I should say, not tomorrow night. It is Friday morning, but I didn't feel good is how I would describe it. I said it was a very unethical win, and the Oilers don't care. The Oilers do not care. I cannot stress to you enough how little the players on the Oilers are going to care that people don't like the way they won, that Arvidsson should have been called for a tripping penalty. Yeah, hand up. He stuck his his stick between Braden McNabb's legs. Sorry about that. Words are hard when you've been up as long as I've been today. When you stick your stick between another player's legs, you impede their ability to skate. That is tripping. It's very straightforward, and it adds insult to injury. That McNabb definitely got injured, left the game, went down the tunnel, maybe dislocated his shoulder, maybe worse. And he got away with it. Victor Arvidsson got away with it. And that's after Nick Waugh cross-checked Trent Frederick straight across the nose for no real reason. Like that play was entirely unnecessary, and it's why it met the 5-minute major threshold, because there was nothing even resembling a hockey play there. And after killing that off, I felt like this game had to go Vegas's way. Vegas had 70% of the shots on goal in the overtime period, which sounds crazy considering the Oilers had a 5-minute major power play. Vegas outshot the Oilers 7-2 in the overtime period, and Vegas had a 5-minute power play. Vegas played well enough that they probably should have won this game in regulation, and the Oilers kept limping around. And that's really my big takeaway. Before we take our first break of today's show, the Oilers did not play a great game tonight. They didn't get a lot from Connor and Leon for much of this game, and they were still there 4-4 in overtime with a very good Vegas Golden Knights team with the return of Alex Pietrangelo to the lineup, who had quite a few nice defensive plays and contributed on the one goal that tied the game at 4. That was maybe a C+ game from the Oilers, and they were able to limp this game to overtime. If you're looking for reasons to believe That right there, that's why you believe in this group. We are going to take our first break of today's edition of Locked On Oilers. And when we come back, I'm going to explain some of the tactical decisions that I've noticed in tonight's game as far as line combinations and matchups and player usage and why that's important, coming up next on today's edition of Locked On Oilers. Did you know your Amazon Fire TV also doubles as an Xbox? You can turn any TV into a gaming and entertainment hub with a Fire TV Stick 4K device, no console required. Grab a paired controller, subscribe, or sign in to an Xbox Game Pass Ultimate with EA Play account, and you're ready to go. You can dive into hundreds of premium titles, like my most played game of 2024, EA Sports College Football 25, or if you got that itch to revisit the Call of Duty glory days, Call of Duty Black Ops 6 is there. And you can do those games on your Fire TV Stick 4K device just as easily as you stream your favorite shows. It is gaming made simple, and it's all on your Fire TV. And with 4K streaming, you can watch more than 1.5 million movies and TV episodes from your favorite subscription services like Netflix, Prime Video, Disney+, Max, Hulu, and so many more. Plus, if you're on the go, your Fire TV Stick 4K device is easier to travel with and allows you to take your games wherever you want to play. So head on over to Amazon.com/Fire TV Locked On to get started. Xbox Game Pass Ultimate subscription and compatible controller required. Available on select devices, including Fire TV Stick 4K 2nd Gen, Fire TV Stick 4K Max, First and Second Gen, and Fire TV Cube 3rd Gen. Today's show is also brought to you by our friends over at Indeed. Did you just realize your business needed to hire someone like yesterday? How can you find amazing candidates fast? Easy. Just use Indeed. When it comes to hiring, Indeed is all you need. Stop struggling to get your job post seen on other sites. Indeed sponsored jobs put your post at the top of the page and help you reach the right candidates fast. We've all been in that spot where our team needs the right hire, like yesterday. The pressure's on, and every day without the right person is a setback to you and your team. That's exactly when Indeed sponsored jobs come in handy. They make sure your post is seen by the right candidates right now. And now you can speed up your hiring process with a $75 sponsored job credit. Just go to Indeed.com/lockedon right now and support our show by saying you heard about Indeed on this podcast. Terms and conditions apply. Hiring, Indeed is all you need. Thank you to everyone that is hanging out on this gloriously unethical Game 2 victory edition of Locked On Oilers. And like I said, the Oilers are not going to be popular tomorrow on the internet. And it's not your responsibility as a fan to care how people perceive your team. I can understand being frustrated if you feel like the Oilers are being singled out or being called a dirty team or they got lucky. And by some extent, they did get lucky tonight. They didn't have a great game. They got outshot. They got out high danger chance. They got out expected goal. And Adin Hill really kind of saved their butts tonight. It's crazy to say in a game that ended 5-4. Excuse me, not Adin Hill. Calvin Pickard saved their butts tonight. Excuse me. Like I said, it's getting late, and I am starting to feel the fact I've been up since 7 o'clock this morning. But the Oilers found a way, and we talk about this all the time. Sometimes you do make your own luck. And when you have guys like Connor McDavid and like Leon Draisaitl, and we should probably talk about Leon not being at his best tonight in terms of his play. And he wins the game in overtime. Like I said, second career overtime playoff game winning goal. And Leon looks, I want to say, tired, because he does occasionally still show that dynamic burst, that really strong first stride to propel himself, but he's really moving tactically. Like he knows something's not fully right, so he needs to pick and choose when he's going to expend energy or if he needs to move laterally. You've really noticed it in that 5-on-4 in the 5-minute major penalty in the overtime period, where he was really just drifting in the same spot over and over again. And when the power play is at its best, you have Connor and Leon operating in circles at the top of the offensive zone, kind of playing off of each other, trying to create space for the rest of the offense, because again, that has a trickle-down effect. When Connor and Leon are overlapping at the top of the offensive zone, that's going to inherently pull the penalty killers away from the net. And look, I give Vegas's penalty killers a ton of credit tonight. On the power play tonight, the Oilers could not get a thing going. Vegas's penalty killers were outstanding. They had such high pressure and made the Oilers so uncomfortable. The Oilers were relegated to the perimeter, and one of the real telltale signs of a power play that's in trouble is when guys start standing around. Because like we talk about all the time, if you're an everydayer, you've heard me say this the entire season. If you're new for the playoffs, you're in on the excitement. Hi, hello, welcome. I'm glad you're here. You're about to hear one of my core hockey philosophies. There are two ways to get the puck where you want it to go. You can skate it there, or you can pass it there. If you only pass it there and everyone is stationary, you're not creating conflict for the defense or the goalie. And you think about what Vegas's power play did tonight, where you had two separate times. One time it was Mark Stone, one time it was Jack Eichel, below the goal line, passing to the opposite circle, where you're creating double leverage, where the goalie needs to go post to post and the penalty killing defensemen need to go from post to post. So you're creating two layers of conflict in the other team's defense. And I would have liked to have seen more of that from the Oilers. And look, like I said in the first segment, you knew Vegas was going to have push tonight. It's just a simple matter of fact. You knew Vegas down a game in the series on home ice was going to have a little bit more juice after playing as poorly as they did in game one. That is a natural phenomena, that a team that loses game one on home ice comes out with a little bit more energy in the second game because they feel a responsibility to try and split at home. So that way their work isn't as cut out for them going back to the road team for game three. But now the Oilers didn't play a great game tonight. They lost a majority of their minutes in terms of the quality of offense they faced. They had two forward combinations with positive expected goal shares in this game: Nugent-Hopkins, Kane, and Hyman, McDavid, Draisaitl, and Perry. And then all of the other forward combinations were negatives in expected goals. They had two of their lines that were positive and high danger chances. I mean, they had 5 forward combinations in this game tonight not generate a single high danger chance. And I think it's really interesting that a majority of the Oiler goals tonight came in broken down, disjointed situations. They came off of the rush. You know, the Evander Kane goal happens because Zach Hyman's busting his butt to win a 50-50 puck, and he sets that play up. And that ultimately leads to the Evander Kane goal. The Podkolzin goal and the Nurse goal, those are both off of the rush. The fact that Connor and Leon didn't have a point going into that overtime period, and they said it on the broadcast, the Oilers had lost 9 straight games when neither of them had a point in a game. And that's the luxury of having great players. That even on nights where they don't have a great game, all they need is one sequence. And we talk about it all the time, regardless of the sport. If you have those game breakers, those guys who can supersede the environment they're playing in, and we talked about this extensively on Thursday's edition of Locked On NHL, Hunter Hodes and I, in regards to the Carolina-Washington series, that does Washington have individual guys that are going to be able to make up the fact that they're going to spend a majority of the series losing the shots on goal battle and maybe the high danger chances battle. And that was really one of the telltales tonight for the Oilers, is that they had 2 lines really going tonight. You didn't see a lot of that Henrique line, and you didn't see a lot of the fourth line, even though I think the fourth line, that Arvidsson, Janmark, and Podkolzin group, I think they have a bit of juice to give. And they always have energy. And I was glad Podkolzin got rewarded with a goal tonight. He's been very impactful in the limited minutes he's played in this series. So we're going to take one more break on today's show. When we come back, I'm going to explain what the Oilers winning both games on road ice means for the series at large coming up next, so be sure to stick around. The NBA and NHL playoffs are in full swing, and every night delivers highly worthy performances, huge momentum shifts, and crazy can't-miss moments like the Oilers winning in overtime. Whether it's a game-winning shot or a huge shave, there's never been a better time to get in on the action. FanDuel makes it easy to stay in the game before and after puck drop and tip-off. With player props, performance trends, and same-game parlays, fans have more ways than ever to play smart and win big. Tomorrow night, or I should say tonight because it's Friday morning now, you've got the Maple Leafs and you've got the Florida Panthers. You could do something like William Nylander shots on goal or Sergei Bobrovsky saves. Or if you think Mikko Rantanen's going to stay hot in the Stars-Jets series, Mikko Rantanen, anytime goal scorer, over 1.5 points, and so many other options over on FanDuel. If you're new to FanDuel, it's the perfect time to sign up. Head on over to FanDuel.com and place your first $5 bet. If it wins, you'll get $200 in bonus bets. Make every moment more with FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the NBA. Thank you to everyone who is hanging out on this Victory Friday, Game 2 of the second round edition of Locked On Oilers. And now, if you're the Oilers, you have a golden, no pun intended, opportunity here to put this series away in 5 or 6 games. And full disclosure, I picked the Golden Knights to win this series in 7 games on the crossover edition with Chris Gawlik. I put my hand up. I said, I don't trust Calvin Pickard. I think Vegas's defense is better. I think Adin Hill is better. I think that's enough. I think I trust Bruce Cassidy a little bit more than I trust Chris Knoblauch. Those are just enough. And through the first 2 games, I have seen Pickard more or less play Adin Hill to a draw. You saw Chris Knoblauch handle his team playing really well in game number 1, and you saw Chris Knoblauch handle his team struggling in game number 2. You think about the fact that their power play really hasn't gotten going in this series. They went 0 for 3 tonight, including a 5-minute major in overtime, and they weren't able to convert. And if you're looking for reasons to believe, I said this earlier, and I'm going to say this again. The Oilers did not play well tonight. You got goals from guys you don't get offense from all that often, in people like Vasily Podkolzin, and people like Darnell Nurse, people like Jake Walman. You know, you got 3 depth goals, and then you got an Evander Kane goal. And Evander Kane's been having a good playoff, so I wouldn't say you don't expect that, but you don't bank on that. You got goals from guys that aren't Connor or Leon, or Evan Bouchard for that matter. You got just good enough goaltending. Your power play and your special teams were bad. You didn't score, not special teams, your penalty kill, excuse me. You didn't score on your power play, and you conceded 2 power play goals. That's a really difficult hand to be dealt, frankly. If you go 0 for 3, including a 5-minute major on the power play, and then the other team goes 2 for 4, you're behind the 8 ball there. You're already down 2-0 in just the special teams minutes. And Vegas controlled a majority of the 5-on-5 play. And yet, in spite of all of those environmental factors, the Oilers found a way. And there is going to be some smarmy person in the comments who says something along the lines of, well, yeah, the refs let you win the game. And look, it's a missed call. Victor Arvidsson should have been called for tripping. That is a textbook trip. I am not the official. The guys on the Oilers aren't going to care that much that they won in an unethical manner, because ultimately it's not their job to call the penalties. You see hockey players all the time pretend they didn't do whatever they were just called with, and then they show the replay and the guy stops arguing with the referee because it's instinctual. It's habitual. Whenever you get called for a penalty, for the most part, you don't think you did anything. You were just trying to play hockey. So with that in mind, I do think, you should be ready to withstand a lot of noise over the next day and a half about how the Oilers won game 2. I am sure some player on the Golden Knights, or maybe Bruce Cassidy, will say something along the lines of criticizing the officials in a backhanded way where it won't be direct because he doesn't want to get fined, but it'll definitely be a conscious, well, I don't know how you expect us to win if blank type thing. And look, Vegas is a really good hockey team. Jack Eichel was incredible tonight. I thought Jack Eichel was the best player on the ice for a good majority of this game on either team. And when the chips were down, Connor McDavid nodded his head and said, okay, I got it. And God bless him. He really did have it. And there's 3-4 guys in the whole world who can have a game the way Connor did, where the puck was fighting him, he was getting held, he was getting interfered with, he was losing the puck a ton, he was getting poke checked, he was getting stick lifted, and still find A, the resilience, and then B, to have the means. You got to remember the minutes, man. McDavid played 30 minutes tonight, if I remember correctly. 29-49. Okay, a little bit under the 30-minute mark, but 30 minutes as a forward is crazy. And then you talk about the back end, where the Oilers played 5 defensemen tonight, basically. Bouchard got 33 minutes, Nurse had 29, Kulak 28, Klingberg 24, Walman 21-58, and then Emerson 7 minutes. You played 5 defensemen pretty much the entire game. And then you talk about it from a forward perspective, where Podkolzin's only at 9 minutes in the game, Arvidsson's at 11, Janmark's at 12, and Janmark's only at 12 as opposed to like 11 or 10 because he kills penalties. If he didn't kill penalties, he wouldn't be there. I think the Oilers probably need to recalibrate their lineup a smidge. I think if Leon isn't going to move as well like he did tonight, and I know he scored the overtime game winner, and we're picking nits to some degree, and we're having first world problems here that the guy scored the overtime game winning goal and he didn't have a great game. But I think consciously you have to make these decisions with looking ahead in mind. The idea that, well, this worked for now. Now it's our goal to get better than we already were. And that's the parting thought I want to leave you with before I send you into the weekend. It is one thing to be up 2-0 in a series, play well in one game, and then kind of eke it out in the other. If you go back to Vegas up 3-1, or even sweep, you are putting yourself in a position to give Leon Draisaitl, who desperately needs it, a week off. You can give Connor McDavid a week off. And you're not thinking about rest. You're not thinking about winning this series in 4 or 5 games if you're on that team. You are playing this one day at a time, and that's the important thing to do. But there is a golden opportunity here for the Oilers to really put themselves in a strong position. And Vegas is absolutely capable of winning 4 straight games. Do not for a second think, even if the Oilers go up 3-0, Vegas is entirely capable of winning 4 straight games. Jack Eichel, I think, is one of the 10 to 15 best players in the world. I was really blown away with the effort he had tonight. And even in spite of that, in spite of how well Vegas played, in spite of the fact Connor and Leon really couldn't get anything going in overtime, the Oilers found a way. And great teams, when the chips are down, they find a way. That will do it for today's edition of Locked On Oilers. I haven't decided if we're going to do a pre-Game 3 show for Saturday. I probably will, just because I want to talk more about the game, because that was such a good game. So I'll probably talk to you guys ahead of Game 3. I will have a Game 3 episode for you Sunday afternoon or evening. It depends. Mother's Day things going on this weekend. So I got to be conscious of my Mother's Day. Got to take care of that. So we will have multiple episodes for you over the course of the weekend, more likely than not. I will definitely talk to you on Monday, no matter what, but absolutely at least one of the 2 days on the weekend. Thank you so much for making Locked On Oilers your first listen of the day. If you're new here and you want to get in on the playoff fun, be sure to subscribe wherever you get your podcasts or over on YouTube. And if you're itching for a little bit more, be sure to check out the Locked On NHL feed for Locked On NHL Game Night, which it goes live as soon as the final game of the night is done. So if you're going to work in the morning, going to the gym, going to work out, whatever, and you want to get even more on the games, that's your ticket. Or if you want to talk more storylines, big picture, the games that night, later in the day, you can check out Locked On NHL covering the biggest stories across the league. I will talk to you guys real soon, most likely tomorrow. Until then, let's go Oilers.